We'll be discussing some heavy topics during this episode. We also swear a lot. Listener discretion is advised. Please take care. Should I read the iconic preface? I don't know if I can do Kristen Stewart's monotone justice, you know?
Oh my gosh. I don't think it's not rocket science.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. I'd never given much thought to how I would die, although I'd had reason enough in the last few months. But even if I had, I would not have imagined it like this. I stared without breathing across the long room into the dark eyes of the hunter, and he looked pleasantly back at me. Surely it was a good way to die, in the place of someone else, someone I loved. Noble even. That ought to count for something. I knew that if I'd never gone to Forks, I wouldn't be facing death now, but terrified as I was, I couldn't bring myself to regret the decision. When life offers you a dream so far beyond any of your expectations, it's not unreasonable to grieve when it comes to an end. The hunter smiled in a friendly way as he sauntered forward to kill me. I had too much pitch there. Kristen Stewart is more monologue.
Listen, she did amazing as Bella Swan.
Did she though?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm so sure.
I can think of like 10 other actresses that could have done this. She has one facial expression, Grace.
Yeah, so does Bella.
We don't know that. We don't see her ever.
Yeah,
it's a book.
We are in her head the whole time. We know how many feelings she has and how limited they are. And also how awkward both she and Edward are the entire time, especially around each other. Like, they are behaving entirely reasonably.
You're joking, right?
I am not joking at all. I, like, as shitty and make funnable as the movies are, well, it's gonna be today. If Shakespeare could make up for it, so can I.
I don't think you have the same qualifications.
I have an English degree, and I bet Shakespeare didn't, actually, so I can do whatever I want. Language is flexible, I will die on this hill.
He just married his cousin, though. Speaking of, did you know that this is, like, the second book is based, like, sort of modeled after Romeo and Juliet? Not based on, but modeled after.
I did know that, because they, throughout so much of it, make allusions to Romeo and Juliet, which, like, it's very important. Oh my gosh, I feel like we're getting into this too early. But it is so important to remember that in teen fiction, especially fiction like this, like, teenager emotions are so intense at all times that love feels like this at all times, and we can sit here making fun of them, being like, LOL, they're just obsessed with each other, it's so stupid and childish and not good for you. But that's how being a teenager feels, and like, it's such a classic motif in the second book to emphasize that it is like Romeo and Juliet, because it is the same feeling, like, yes, I would die for this person. Like, that's how you feel when you're a teenager in love.
Oh, wait a minute.
Maybe.
We should maybe tell the people what we're doing this week.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned that at all. That's why I said we're getting into this way too quickly.
In case you live under a rock and don't recognize those iconic words that I just read, this is Twilight by Stephenie Meyer, the book that started it all.
Yeah.
Did it? Well, yeah, kind of.
It started so much shit, though.
It did. I feel like last year was like 2008 all over again. Why? Because we had a new Twilight book. Mm-hmm. We had a new Dixie Chicks album. Well, there's the Chicks now. We have a new Allie and AJ album.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's 2008 again, and no one can tell me otherwise.
No. And I feel like it is really key that most of the people who have platforms now are people who were at the age that this book was, like, very much directed towards them when it came out. So everyone who can talk about it very openly and very freely on the internet has the access to do that. And with quarantine, it's nostalgia city. Like, we are all going back to our old haunts for comfort. And Twilight is a peak one for some people.
100%. And I feel like people were also looking at their bookshelves because they had nothing but time on their hands going, what are the longest books I own? Because I'm going to read them again. I've got nothing but time.
Yeah. Like, when I was looking at the reviews for this book, so many of them were from 2020, of people being like, this is my second read-through. I'm reading this as a 24-year-old after reading it as a 13-year-old. Like, it was so much stuff like that.
I feel like we should also throw out a disclaimer that we weren't planning to do another Rage-type read this soon, but our plans got kind of sidelined. We're looking to do this thing where we bring one of our friends on every so often, we were going to record tonight and it didn't work out. So this was supposed to be next week and now we're doing it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not trying to torture whoever may be listening. It's worth mentioning, I think.
There are some books that we do like, and we will talk about them.
Yeah, they exist. In case you're wondering, we have enjoyed a book or two from time to time.
In theory.
I enjoyed one recently. So,
I'm so
yeah,
happy for you.
yeah, so Midnight Sun came out over the summer.
Yeah.
It is 800 and something pages.
Yeah.
Twilight is...
I don't even know. It is. They are all so thick.
Oh, sorry.
No.
This isn't right because that is the first chapter of New Moon and they put it in the back.
Ooh, what a scandal. We love a preview.
Yeah, sorry. It is 498 pages.
So
Literally half the size.
That is so funny, honestly, to think that Edward has more thoughts going on in his head than Bella
He
does.
doesn't sleep.
This is true. He does exist twice as long as she does.
Well, more than that too. He's older.
Oh, he's so much older. That's also gross, and we should talk about that.
Yeah, we should. So, also, did you read Midnight Sun?
I got through the first, 2 chapters, but I signed it out while I was working at the library, which meant I was working full-time, so I did not have, any brain space left to do new reading.
It's also extremely angsty.
It is super angsty, but also I'm a little bit obsessed because, I love myself a bad boy, monster boy. So the opening chapter being the scene in the biology lab where he is, triggered into a blood rage when she shows up because she smells so good, and he's sitting there being like,
how many people do I have to kill to get away with this?
yeah, and knowing so intensely that he has the ability to kill every witness in this room if he needs to, I know that if I ever really sat through an entire Twilight novel, it would be that one.
I read the first couple chapters on the app. Amazon gives you a preview, right?
Yes.
Because I was like, oh, maybe. And then I read the first 2 pages and I was like, wait a minute. Is the whole book like this? And my good friend had read it and she ended up lending it to me rather than me spending money on it. And
Thankfully.
she said, yeah, it's all like this. And I was like, oh, okay. So I actually had another light read going on the side, which I don't normally do because I just needed a reprieve from time to time. Normally I focus on one book, but then I was like, I need something else that can cleanse my palate.
Yeah.
Otherwise
absolutely.
we're not going to make it through this because let me make it clear that I am not a mental health professional in any sense of the word. However, this man is clinically depressed.
Oh my gosh, yes.
There's no other way to put it.
No.
Yeah, he's clinically depressed.
He's also just I've obviously never met someone like this, but the thought of continually being I'm such a bad person, that is maximum.
No, he doesn't. He's not a person, remember? He's a monster.
I may not be human, but I am a man.
It's dude, you spent the last 4 books trying to... I don't... Okay, that's book 5. This is book 1.
Yeah.
That is book 5, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, Breaking Dawn, then back to Midnight Sun. And Stephenie Meyer has said that she is returning to this world and she's going to write. The next book will be about Renesmee. But granted, this book took 10 years to write, so who knows if we might have children by the time that happens, so...
Well, and she had announced Midnight Sun not long after the last movie came out and released, it got leaked online. So everyone read it and was like, oh fuck, this is shitty. So she stopped and pulled back and then brought it back out during lockdown. So
it sent her into quite a deep depression, apparently.
I would imagine, especially because she is a devout Mormon woman. So to have the biggest thing after her series that is related be 50 Shades, I'm sure was not a great feeling for her.
Yeah.
And that and people give her flack all the time because she was well known for not really receiving criticism very well.
Mm-hmm.
But also the fact that she has not pushed back or shown any sort of actual anger towards all of these people who are writing Twilight ripoffs and making millions of dollars off of it. Like, honestly, I would give her some credit for that.
She's very respectful.
Yes.
She is, I will give her that. She's very respectful. I've never heard anything about her being rude to fans in her social media. She's very respectful and interacts with people very well. So, like, I will definitely give her that. And again, I feel like last week we didn't make this clear enough. In the same way that we were not shitting all over Anna Todd as an extension of After, we're not shitting all over Stephenie Meyer.
No.
We are shitting on the book. I'm sure she's a lovely person.
She is a little bit racist, but that's not like...
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
We'll get there. We're like way ahead of ourselves. Okay.
Very much.
So, who we got? We got Bella Swan.
Yeah.
Bella Swan is 17.
She is baby.
Yeah, but she's baby that thinks she's
Not.
adult.
Which is a bad combination, but is classic 17 to 19 area.
Yeah, thinking that they know everything 100%.
Yeah.
And she is the daughter of Charlie and Renee.
I fucking love Charlie with all my heart.
Oh, Charlie's great, man.
We cannot shit on Charlie ever.
We had a, like, movie night at my house, and we all agreed. Were you there? Like,
I wasn't there for the first movie.
No, but we watched the second one. You were there, yes. This was when we were kind of meeting everybody in our program back in September, and we were like, why don't we throw something on that, you know, everyone can kind of make fun of. So we threw Twilight on, and the agreement in the room was that Charlie deserves a spin-off. I mean, he does get a happy ending. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself again. Anyway, so we got Bella Swan. She is currently living with her mother, Renee, in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
Her mother has just married Phil, who I believe is like husband number 3 or 4, something like that.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Phil is a minor league baseball player and travels around with his minor league baseball team, and Renee wants to travel around with him. And being that Bella is still in high school, this would not be good for her because she would have to keep going to new schools. So because she understands that Renee is unhappy being away from Phil, Bella volunteers to go live with her dad, Charlie, who is the police chief of this town called Forks, Washington. Forks, Washington is real, by the way.
It is.
In case you were wondering.
And it did get a lot of attention after the movies came out, more so than when the books came out. But not everyone considered it the most positive because there was literally no reason to associate vampires with this space before Twilight happened.
I heard the townspeople actually were kind of annoyed with all the tourists that showed up.
Yeah, I bet they would be. Because again, like, it is just this flouncy teen romance novel, which would just attract the attention of teenage fangirls and their mothers. Mostly. Obviously, there are other people who also read it and enjoyed it. But those are kind of the key demographic and the key group of people that most people find very annoying. Which is entirely unfair and based on so many other things that we just don't have time to get into the nuance of. But,
yeah, there's also nothing there.
No.
Like, there's no, like, museums or anything. Like, it's not somewhere where you could... It's not like, for example, like, Washington, D.C., like, I'm sure everyone's read books that take place there, but, like, you go there for, like, the Smithsonian, and it's just, like, cool in the back of your mind. You're like, oh, this was in this book I read. You don't go somewhere because you read a fictional romance novel about it. At least I don't. Unless there's another reason for you to go there, basically.
Yeah, I would honestly hope not. Although I am in the like online circles of Foxhole Court readers, or All for the Game is the series, and one of the key schools that is mentioned in that is Palmetto State and USC, which is a university in California,
University of Southern California.
Yeah. So people being like teenagers reading this and then being like, these are real universities is just so common, but also so cringy.
So, Bella does not actually want to do this, despite the fact that it was her idea. This is like a martyr type thing for her mom. So she goes, which I don't get, because she arrives in Forks, and Charlie goes out of his way to make sure, or at least try to make sure, that she will be happy. He buys her a truck, gets her enrolled for school, gets her room set up. And she's not rude to him, but she's definitely not
kind.
Yeah, and I sort of feel like if I was talking to Bella, I'd be like, this is not his fault. You volunteered to come here. He is doing what he can to make you comfortable, and you were just acting like a teenager.
That's exactly it, though. She's acting like a teenager, and part of her not being impressed with him is that she's like, they haven't seen each other in years, and she feels like he still sees her as the 12-year-old? How? She was very young when she last saw him long term.
Well,
she makes a comment about it, being like, I'm not an 8-year-old girl anymore or something.
Yeah, but then in the same breath, she's also like, I'm gonna clean the house and cook dinner.
Yeah.
It's like, and he relies on her to do that, so I don't think he sees her that way. It doesn't make sense to me.
I know.
So when she receives her truck, we meet Jacob Black,
Who I love.
We like him. At this point, he's not a major character, but he's, I think, 15 or 16. He's about a year younger than her.
Yeah.
She loves the truck to her intense surprise. It's like, do you understand that that is every teenager's dream? To have their parents roll up with a moving vehicle just for them?
It really is. Especially because, like, as much as it's a piece of garbage, that means that it's something that you can break without feeling too bad about.
Yeah, exactly. And it's implied that he got it for free anyway, so no skin off his back.
Yeah, because Jacob just, like, found a piece of garbage and fixed it for them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she goes to Forks High School, and they haven't had a new student since elementary school, someone says. So it's very much like a petting zoo, a new person type thing.
Even though she's the most boring person in the world.
Yeah, she doesn't have any interests other than reading. She doesn't have any hobbies. She's not physically coordinated. We don't actually know that much about her.
No.
When you think about it.
Because she's a neutral mask, which is, like, usually associated with film or visual mediums.
Yeah.
There's the word. But it's an easier way for the audience to get invested, which I feel like is just super common for first-person stories. Is that if they are kind of the most bland, nothing character in the world, then you can very easily be like, oh yeah, she's like me, and she does all these things like me, and like, oh, I'm kind of unattractive, but also everyone loves me, and I'm a little bit clumsy, but not enough that I am, like, literally covered in bruises all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
So we meet Mike and we meet Eric, and it is blatantly obvious that they are crushing on her. We meet Jessica and Angela, and I think we meet Ben too. So there's 5, and then there's some side characters that don't really matter that are background characters.
Ben?
Yeah, Angela's boyfriend.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. See, like, these she calls them her friends. It's like, you are not their friends because you don't know anything about. Okay, I keep getting ahead of myself.
It is true.
So she goes to class. Everything is fine. Everyone is acting like she's the shiny new toy. She goes to gym, humiliates herself at that. Shows up in the lunchroom. Mike and Eric are still having a who can flirt the hardest competition. And that's when we have that iconic scene from the movie where we see the Cullens for the first time. So, would you like to describe the Cullens?
Oh my gosh. You mean the borderline inbreeding section? It's such a weird situation, and no one really acknowledges how weird it actually is.
They kind of do. I mean, it's not actual inbreeding.
I know, but it's too close. And the fact that they are so secretive about their family, like, when you don't know the full situation, it is kind of really weird. But anyway, we have Rosalie and Emmett. Rosalie has a little different last name. Rosalie and Jasper are both Hales.
Rosalie and Jasper Hale.
Yes. And Emmett, Alice, and Edward are all Cullens. They are adopted by Dr. Carlisle Cullen, and Esme is her full name. I don't know why my brain thought she had a fuller name than that, but it's because of the baby later. Yeah, so they are all more so, technically, the children. So why the other two have different last names is just for the shipping. So Rosalie and Emmett are together, Jasper and Alice are together, and everyone knows them as just the hottest, but also weirdest family in town.
Mm-hmm.
They never show up on sunny days, but no one's suspicious of that because apparently they go on hiking trips.
Yeah,
Is
very
there another excuse?
outdoorsy.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they just go hiking when it's sunny because it's barely ever sunny in Forks.
This is a very flimsily constructed backstory. I'm like, really? You guys have been alive for all these years and you don't have the intelligence to come up with a better backstory?
Yeah.
And they all have this, like, super pale skin and interesting colored eyes, and they are humanoid, but much too perfect to be real humans, pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, Edward is the only one that is not coupled up, and Bella, stares at him. There's no nice way to put it.
Oh, yeah. Which he kind of stares back.
Yeah, it's a staring contest.
Yeah.
And then we get the iconic biology scene. So, as we all know, when Bella goes into biology for the first time, she walks in front of a fan, and Edward, how would you describe it?
He has,
It's not simply a cringe, is
No.
it? We can't describe it that way.
It is a full body grimace or shudder or something. Like, if you saw him, you would think that he was going to be ill, which is how Bella takes it. She thinks that he is, disgusted with her or something.
Yeah, she thinks, she smells herself, and she's like, what the hell?
Yeah, because he, spasms in his seat, and his is the only one that has an empty seat next to him. He, spasms in his seat, gathers up his things really quickly, and, runs out of the room.
Yeah, it looks like he's having a stroke, a cross between a stroke and a seizure.
Little bit. But no one tries to follow up.
No. She's embarrassed.
Who wouldn't be, really?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It was kind of, you've never spoken to this person before and you've offended them so much that they clearly, or he's acting like he hates her at this point.
Yes.
And then she mans up and she's like, you know what, when I see this guy tomorrow, I'm gonna ask him what his problem is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you go, Bella.
Truly.
Yeah, but the problem is the next day's sunny.
And he's not there.
Nope.
What a scandal.
Yeah, and then even when it is not sunny anymore, he doesn't show up for a couple days, but his siblings are there.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're watching Bella with some interest.
I would too. Shiny new toy.
Yeah, and so a couple days go by.
Mm-hmm.
He's back, and he's acting like nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
What is it with hot boys suddenly having a turnaround of feelings and attitude? We had that with Hardin last week.
Yeah, but it's because it's the dream. And Hardin had an ulterior motive. Does Edward technically have an ulterior motive?
Yeah, it's much less, ironically, it's much less serious. It's the fact that he can't read her mind and he just wants to know what she's thinking, which is much less.
Although he also feels like an insane, intense attraction to her.
You mean desire to eat her?
Attraction. Tomato.
I too am extremely attracted when I see a McDonald's. Yeah, I guess. Okay.
Right? Arousal is arousal. Who's to say how you can define it?
Yeah.
No, I'm not condoning vor. We're not going to talk about that.
Okay. Okay. So he starts talking to her and asking her about herself. When she tries to reciprocate, he not so gracefully dodges every single question about him.
Very awkward.
And she's like, hey, did you get contacts? And he's like, what? And she's like, well, your eyes were black last time and now they're topaz colored. And he goes, it's the fluorescence of the light. The most iconic line, one of the most, okay, say what you want about Twilight, but it birthed so many iconic lines.
It's the fluorescence.
It's like, what? Yeah, the sky is blue. What about it? It's like me asking you, hey, where'd you get that shirt? And you being like, that car's red.
Honestly. That's why I say they're not that bad of actors, because they were given the most awkward characters in
Source
the
material,
world.
yeah.
And they worked it.
They tried. They did their best.
Exactly.
Kristen Stewart does need to close her mouth sometimes, though.
Yeah, that was a bold choice. And I feel like we all agree it was a mistake. I don't know how she feels about it, but
Well, she's
it was a bold
busy
choice.
being Princess Diana right now.
She's being Princess Di?
Yeah, and Spencer. It's a Pablo Larraín movie. It's coming out this month.
Good for her.
Yeah, that was a whole other thing.
Everything after Twilight except the cheating scandal, good for her. That's how I feel about Kristen Stewart.
Yeah,
Like,
you
she
know
has
what?
only done good things with this fame.
I sort of feel like it's just like I admire her work, but it's just not my favorite. Like, the movies that she's in are just not what I gravitate towards. So I feel like I am not in a good position to appreciate it. It's kind of wasted on me.
Happens.
Yeah, so, okay. Then what? Is this where we have the van scene?
Isn't it cafeteria first? Cafeteria part 2?
Yeah,
When they're talking in
cafeteria
line?
part 2, they're talking in line. He does this weird reverse gravity thing with an apple and it slides up his leg and he presents it to her in a not so subtle imitation of the cover of the book.
Yes.
So the apple symbolism.
Is it not Garden of Eden shit? Yeah.
Yeah. And then on Midnight Sun we have the pomegranate
Hades and Persephone.
Exactly.
Yeah. Although I do appreciate Cafeteria Part 2 just for the, what if I'm not the hero, I'm the monster. Like, he's just so full of self-hatred, and he needs to chill.
Yeah, he just,
You know?
everything in this book is so freaking extreme for no reason.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we have the van scene.
Yes.
She almost gets crushed by someone.
I don't think they know who it, or it's not
Tyler.
someone important in the...
It's Tyler who also has a crush on her.
Well, because she's shiny new toy.
Yeah, well that doesn't explain why he almost kills her.
No, it's because bad weather and something went wrong with his brakes. Like, it's a combo.
Yeah, it's a combination of things that is unlikely to happen in the real world. So he almost crutches her with his van when she's over, I think just like organizing her school stuff on the hood of her truck, you know, minding her own business. And she turns around, realizes that she's not going to escape from this van, and then all of a sudden Edward is there, stops the van with his bare hand, leaves a massive dent where his hand was, and then he's gone. He has saved her.
Next stop, she's at the hospital.
Yep. Who do we meet?
Carlisle! Best boy!
Yeah. We like him.
We do like him. It's alright.
His wig in the movie is horrible.
It's really bad. Although nothing compares to Esme's, like, awful makeup line
That is
in
very
the
true.
movies.
That is very true.
Rough.
That is very true. So, Bella says something along the lines of, like, oh, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Edward. And Carlisle's like, what? And she's like, yeah, he, like, stopped the van. And Carlisle's like, gotta go.
Yeah. And then when she meets up with Edward, because obviously after Carlisle and Edward had a little chat, he had to go and intervene with Bella. She's like, thanks for doing that. And he goes, oh no, you hit your head really hard.
I was
Like,
standing right next to you, gaslighting. He's gaslighting her.
He is lying to her in hopes that she will not think about it too hard because she has consistently been suspicious of him and his behavior and his appearance and everything about him.
Why no one else is beyond me, but anyway.
Because they're the weird family. You don't get involved with the weird family in town. That's just not small town culture. You either know everything about them or you know the weirdest shit about them and you don't touch it.
That's fair. And then after he realizes that she's not going to drop it, he just switches to, well, no one's going to believe you anyway. So,
Yeah.
which he's not wrong.
He is not.
No. So this starts in the movie. We get to see old school Google.
Yes.
She searches for books.
No,
That's
you're
not what
skipping.
happens. I'm skipping. I'm
You're
sorry.
skipping.
She
You
ends
skip
up
to the beach.
Yes, she gets invited to go to the beach with some of her friends that are, well, not her friends.
Yeah.
She doesn't make an effort to be involved with them or, you know, talk to them or anything. When she invites Edward and he says, sorry, can't, I don't like it, it's pretty crowded. This
And
beach is on the reservation.
And his family is not allowed on the res. He does say that.
We don't know this yet.
No, he says that he's not allowed on the res
Oh,
as
cool.
part of his excuse to not go to the beach. but
I thought
like
he said
doesn't
it's
explain
crowded.
why.
I thought he just says, oh, it's crowded.
I would hope he says both, but like she probably just pushes him to say more.
Yeah, I would imagine so. We see, who do we see? Baby Jacob Black.
Baby Jacob.
He's not that baby at this, oh, whatever. He's baby enough.
He is baby enough.
Somehow it gets brought up when she's taking a stroll with him down the beach, that Edward is acting cagey and he's really weird, but she also kind of likes it.
Mm-hmm.
And Jacob tells her the legend of the Cold Ones.
Yeah.
Vampires. And he discusses the fact that his tribe are supposedly descended from wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, the tribe is descended from wolves, and the ancestors of the Cullens, the Cold Ones, or what he's referring to as the ancestors, they're the same people because they live forever.
Mm-hmm.
In order to coexist peacefully, once they learned that the Cullens did not consume human blood, they decided to kind of call a truce, and they drew up a treaty, and part of this treaty is a line. The Cullens do not cross the line, but the tribe members can, for some reason, and that's
for
that.
some reason, you say.
Yeah. So that's that. And then Bella's like, So then she goes home and starts Googling.
Yes.
Finds some books that are only available at this bookstore in Port Angeles, which is convenient because Jessica and Angela have invited her to go with them while they shop for prom dresses. Bella has already decided that she's not going to the prom, despite the fact that she's been invited 3 times.
Yeah, by 3 different guys. Or Mike twice?
Kind of, he pushes it, and she lies. She said she's going to visit her mom. She's not sure. She does not want to go.
No.
She's also invited by Eric and Tyler. He's like, sorry, I almost killed you. You want to go to the prom? And luckily for her, she doesn't have to say no to that because Charlie's like, fuck no.
Yeah. Although I do love just comparing in my brain that he is like, sorry, I almost killed you. Do you want to go to prom? But then when Edward pulls that shit later, but not really, he wins. He gets to go to prom with
It's
her.
okay because they're in love.
It is okay because they're in love.
Yeah, a lot of this story is, that's the theme of the story. A lot of the plot points. It's okay because they're in love.
Which I will admit I do appreciate over the trope of I fixed him with love. Like, Edward is never fixed.
No,
he never gets over the self-hatred.
Nope.
He just, Bella wears him down until he's like, fine, we'll get married, have sex, and I'll also make you a vampire, I guess. Just know that I hate this, so like, you'll probably hate it too, and then she doesn't, because she's a rock star.
Yeah, Bella can roll with the punches. We can give her that.
Yeah.
She kind of does accept this all very calmly.
She does so very well.
She handles trauma pretty well, actually.
Yeah.
Until the second book.
Listen.
We have to finish this one first.
Exactly.
Okay, so she goes to Port Angeles, immediately ditches Angela and Jessica, like a good friend does, goes to this bookstore through a circuitous route through numerous alleyways when it's dark in a city. Yep.
Unadvisable.
Yeah, no, not smart. Goes into the bookstore, picks up the books, comes back out, and is cornered by a group of men who are clearly drunk, and it's implied that they are going to attack her in some manner.
Yeah.
And then we got a knight in a shining silver Volvo. Pulls up.
Opens the door. Get in, loser.
Yeah, get in, loser. We are going to dinner.
They do end up going to dinner.
They do.
The Volvo belongs to Edward.
I just love that he drives a Karen car. I'm sorry,
I really thought that when they used a Volvo in the movie...
Product placement? Did you think it was product placement?
Yeah. So, to learn that
it's actually in the book.
It is book accurate that he drives a Volvo.
Yeah, a station wagon. And then we got Rosalie, who drives a red Mercedes.
Who drives the Jeep?
Emmett.
Oh, Emmett, I love that for you so much.
And then Alice has a Porsche. It doesn't matter. Okay, the point I'm making is that you could have picked something less
awful.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but
A sedan's a sedan.
just pretend you get it.
I try.
Yeah.
But yeah, he picks her up. They find Angela and Jessica.
And they're like, where the hell were you? Oh, hi, Edward. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to make sure that she eats. And they're like, that's a great idea.
Because they both think that he is very attractive, but also very weird. So they're like, we're gonna go. You guys have fun.
But also call us when you get home.
Yeah.
So they go in there, and this is where, so we don't find out that he's a vampire yet because she hasn't read the books that she just picked up.
Mm-hmm.
But he does admit that he can read minds. She pushes this because in the car on the way from her almost attack, he says, you don't know what they were thinking. She's like, and you do? And he's like, well, yeah, actually I do.
Yeah, actually I do. And isn't that not also the scene in the car where she is like reaching to fiddle with the temperature change, and he like also reaches at the same time, and she's like, your hands are so cold.
Yeah.
Because they have not touched each other. It is very important to Edward that they do not touch each other.
Yeah, it's a bit much for him. Can't handle it. Well, at this point he's worried he can't handle it.
Sweet boy. Anyway.
Yeah, so they eat, and she eats.
Yeah.
And he, as soon as he says, I read minds, but I cannot read yours, she goes, is there something wrong with me? He does make a good point here. He's like, I just told you I can read minds, and you're asking me if there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Which is like, fair point, actually.
Really, though.
Yeah.
I feel like I would take it as a win if I couldn't be mind read.
Yeah, get some privacy.
But maybe she thinks it's like too literal of a head empty, no thoughts. That's a concern.
Yeah.
But whatever.
So then they drive back to Forks. She goes up into her room and she reads these books.
Does she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least skims them.
Yeah.
And she comes to the conclusion that Edward is indeed a cold one, i.e. a vampire.
Scandal.
She dreams of him for the first time this evening.
Mm-hmm.
And she wakes up, sees him in the corner, turns on the light, there's nobody there, and she's like, okay, well, I was just dreaming, or, you can be confused when you wake up in the morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, makes sense. Mm-hmm. It was him, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
She goes to school the next day. Okay, this is where the movie kind of divulges from the book, because what happens in the movies is where the, as if you could outrun me scene happens. That doesn't happen until much later in the book.
Yeah.
So he confirms it for her, and then he's like, you want to go on a date? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, do you want to go into the woods alone with me? And she's like, yeah, sounds good.
Which, of all the things, and he does try to make it clear, like, I am worried about us doing this after a while. Like, after a few days after he mentions this, he's like, I don't know if I can do this, and he is worried for her safety and the fact that they are going so far away from town by themselves. And then, when it's the day of their date, because she does not care, she just keeps powering through.
She's like, you're hot, kill me.
Yeah, she tells him that she lied to both Charlie and her friends about where she would be, and he gets very upset with her because he does not trust himself.
Yes.
Which, if you consider vampirism and his particular desires as, like, metaphorical sex, it's really weird, but also, like, thank you, sir, for being aware? I don't even know. Like,
it's a combination of one person who is not aware enough and one person who is too aware.
Yeah. And I really appreciate the level of love that kind of goes into her trusting him more than he trusts himself. Like, that feels like such a classic Byronic hero thing, to have the heroine be like, you're not like that, you're better than that, but also, like, he literally would. And almost does a few times.
Yeah, because when they get to the meadow, after he shits all over her truck, notably, and they get to the meadow, and they're lying there in the grass together because it's a sunny day, and he's taken his shirt off and shows her how he sparkles in the sun.
This is the skin of a killer, Bella.
Do you know what? When I was watching that with Tessa and Kelly, I was like, good. That just looks like one of those Instagram filters nowadays.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. And I hate to say
it. This is the skin of an Instagram filter.
And I really do hate to say it, but I do feel like that's really smart. Like, the lore is messy. Smire has rough war.
Smire?
Smire! It makes so much more fun. Like, her lore is really messy, but the idea that their skin is as hard as diamonds, so it shines like diamonds in the sun, is so fun to me.
Yeah, it's fun, yeah.
Like, I was in the camp as a 14-year-old of, like, vampires don't sparkle, blah, 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 blah. But vampire lore is so flexible that I kind of do love that she did that and did something fun with it, because there's nothing wrong with wanting to make vampires attractive.
Also, I feel like kind of prior to her, Anne Rice had kind of cornered the market on vampire romance, and no one was, we have to give credit where credit is due. No one was really doing this before she did other than Anne Rice.
Yeah.
And Anne Rice was like very much a specific, more like old-fashioned 1800s, like Dracula-esque.
But they were also pretty boys.
Yeah.
Like, it is worth noting that this is well-run territory, but she does it in such a distilled way, and such a accessible way, too.
Yeah, I appreciate that she tries to make it something a little more accessible.
Exactly.
We will get into the overall quality of the writing in a bit, because I have a couple things I want to say about that. So after they spend the day outside just basically talking, get to know each other, she touches his hand for the first time, and he doesn't like that and runs away.
Yeah.
And then comes back to sit next to her only when she promises she won't do it again.
Yeah. He very much struggles with his self-control, and I can respect it, but it is so cartoonish.
Okay, when I reread this over the first quarantine round one of, I don't know how many rounds.
Oh gosh.
Is it bad that when she touched his hand and he bolts, I was like, God damn, like, imagine, like, with all the school dress code things that pop in. Imagine if she wore a tank top. Good lord.
Yeah, I do love people making fun of, like, a lot of people that I've seen illustrate, like, the outfits that she would have worn, and kind of joking about how attractive Edward finds her in those outfits, or, like, trying to make it clear that, oh, maybe if this khaki skirt had a long slit in it, that would be attractive. Like, it's so funny.
This is very true. She wears a lot of khaki.
So much khaki. And her entire self is almost consistently covered. She is very modest.
I mean, if that's what you want to wear, that's what you, like, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No criticizing. Just very curious how... It is very interesting how Edward's attraction to her works, especially if it is on such a carnal level.
Yeah.
That she is still so modest and so put together and so quiet and hidden, but is still very attractive to him.
Mm-hmm. And so they go home, and Bella goes to go to sleep, and he pops through her window. And was like, hey, I got something to tell you. I have been watching you sleep since you got here. She's like, oh, cool. Yet another, like, moment where she accepts something really well.
Yeah, she takes it much better than she probably should, and he does admit here, too, that he does not sleep, so he doesn't really have anything better to do but watch her sleep, and I feel like on some level...
Makes sense, actually.
Yeah, because this is the newest and only real change in his life in the last 90 years, so he is allowed to be a little excited, I think, but this is a bit much, because he did it for the longest time without her knowing.
Yeah.
And that's a bit sketchy.
Yeah.
And there is also something nice, even though his whole thing has been he cannot control himself around her, and the fact that she would be sleeping and very vulnerable, and he is in the room would make me a little stressed out.
Yeah.
But, because he emphasizes this so much, but he's also emphasized how much he is, like, the distillation of a predator, so I think I would kind of feel safe at the same time. Like, oh, nothing worse could get to me because you're here.
Well, also, who's gonna break into a police chief's house?
You would like to hope they wouldn't, but...
Forks doesn't seem like a particularly high crime area.
It does not.
So then we get into, they're dating at this point.
Yeah.
And the family wants to meet her. Edward's family. So they go to Edward's house. And yeah.
I'm just
Not much
laughing.
happened. Like, she discovers that Rosalie does not like her.
No.
For reasons that we don't get into until book 2, book 3.
Yeah.
It's not important right now. Alice likes her, Jasper likes her, but Jasper is the newest vampire, and they make a point of saying that the newer, or I guess the younger you are, quote unquote, the harder it is for you to handle not drinking human blood.
He's not the youngest. He's just the most recent convert to their we only drink animal blood.
Yes.
Yeah. Which the difference is not as important as it should be. I think
he might also.
But
No, he's not the youngest. You're
the
right.
Civil War happened long before the Spanish
Good point.
influenza.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, but we get into his backstory in book 3.
Yes.
Emmett likes her too.
Emmett is the best. I
Also
love Emmett
rolls
so
with
much.
the punches.
Yes, he's such a good boy. Which he does. He does date Rosalie, so I feel like you'd have to know how to roll with the punches. And no flack to Rosalie, she rocks. But she is also a lot.
She does okay. When you are first reading this and you don't know anything about her, you'd think she's just being a bitch. But then once she kind of explains herself, you're like, okay, that's actually kind of valid.
Yeah. She ends up rocking.
Because she's concerned about Edward snapping, basically, and murdering Bella, and then having to cover it up, because, covering up a murder is
a lot.
It's strenuous.
It's tough.
Yeah. So, which, fair.
Yeah.
So when you think about it from that perspective, it makes more sense.
A little bit.
This is the moment where he shows her the lullaby that he has written for her. I have to go off for a second.
Tell me.
So the name of the lullaby, the Carter Burwell version that's in the movie, is called River Flows in You. Everyone confused it with Yuruma's River Flows in You. They are two separate songs, okay? As someone who used to play the piano, I feel very strongly about this. They are two very different songs. Everyone started thinking that the Yuruma version was Bella's lullaby. It's not. Get it right.
This I did not know.
It's different, okay?
Especially because it's only called Bella's Lullaby on the album. It is not called A River Flows Through You.
Yeah, I don't know why they changed the name, but they did.
I mean, maybe it was specifically to disparage this confusion.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dissolve this confusion?
There's nothing wrong with either song, but they're separate songs.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, rant over. This is where he jumps onto a tree out of his bedroom. Well, not really bedroom, because there's no bed in it.
Yeah.
He jumps out of his room onto a tree with Bella on his back and climbs a tree like a fucking Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, everything is peachy keen. Hopefully nothing screws that up.
Oop.
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 Uh-oh.
Alice sees a vision that there is thunderstorms on the horizon.
Yep.
And she's like, that means that we can go play baseball. Which, I gotta say, nothing will beat that baseball scene for me. I love it so much. Like, 90% of my time looking for fan fiction is just supernatural hijinks.
Yeah.
Like, it's my favorite genre of anything. So the fact that in the middle of this romance novel, they get to just fuck around and play baseball as vampires, I love it with all my heart.
Oh, wait a minute. We forgot something important.
Which part?
He tries to kiss her and it doesn't really go that well.
Wait, forget this. What?
Remember, he's like, I want to try something, despite the fact that them holding hands went over not well
for him.
Yeah. So he kisses her and he wants her to stand there like a statue and not do anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's what he wants to happen. And then as soon as she starts getting into it, and he paints it as she was being unreasonably into it, but she's a teenager.
Yeah.
She wants to make out.
And
it's normal.
We don't get a lot of her previous love life in these books at all, do we?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so. So
she does say it's not her first kiss.
Okay. But it still could be her first decent one. Do you know what I mean?
That's fair.
So
but she gets into it.
She's allowed to be excited.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. And then he literally throws her across the bed when she starts reciprocating, when she doesn't act like a bloody statue.
Which is rough. That's rough all around. As much as she knew getting into this that he was a lot in that department.
Jeez.
That's a lot, dude.
It's like, calm down.
Yeah.
Take a chill, pal. okay, sorry. Back to
Yes.
the iconic baseball
Baseball.
scene. Yeah.
Love baseball.
So they need the thunder because
Because they're so strong that when they hit the ball, it makes a lot of noise. So they have to time it really well with the thunder, which is why Alice is the pitcher.
yeah,
And
she
also,
sees the future.
yeah. Oh yeah, we did not talk about their powers at all. Only 3 of the Cullens have powers.
Edward is a mind reader. Alice sees the future, but it is mentioned and emphasized that it's subjective. The future changes based
Yeah.
on people's decisions, and Jasper can like influence the emotions of people around him.
Yeah, it was very helpful for his backstory. But yeah, so she can see the future, which is why she's the pitcher, so she can time it really well for when the thunder strikes.
Well, okay, sorry, side note. Carlisle doesn't have like a specific special power, but they do say that he's the most good at this lifestyle.
Oh,
The restraint, because he's a doctor and a surgeon, and there's a lot of blood in that, and he's okay with that.
That is very true. He has been kicking for a very long time,
Yes,
so he's had lots of time to get used to it, but there is probably some supernatural shenanigans going on there with him as well.
So in the background, while this story has been going on, there have been these random murders happening.
I feel like they call them animal attacks.
Yeah, they're called animal attacks because the bodies are very brutally torn apart. Yeah. And the Cullens are fairly certain in their right that the murderers are either a nomad vampire or a group of nomad vampires.
Mm.
Which then becomes apparent because while they're playing baseball,
Alice sees a vision of said vampires approaching, and
Yep.
they're like,
Fuck.
she is very nervous about it because she can tell that they are not cool.
yeah, their eyes are red, so they have been drinking human blood.
Yeah.
So, for some reason, okay, this is what I don't get.
Okay.
Even though they have superhuman speed,
Mm-hmm.
no one picks her up and just runs away.
No, not a soul. They all just crowd
For some
around
reason,
her.
they're like, no, we can't do that. For some
Yeah.
reason.
They know that these vampires have picked up Bella's human blood scent because she smells very strongly. That is a thing that they mention. You can smell her blood very well, and it smells delicious. Like, everybody wants in on that.
Yeah, but they're good at this point.
They are.
They're holding it in.
The family, the Cullens are doing well.
Yes.
But this random new group of vampires, they're like,
Passing through, though. They don't live there. They're just passing through.
yeah, because that is another thing about the Cullens, is that it is unusual that they stay in one place for so long,
Mm-hmm.
whereas other
As a
vampires,
family.
yeah.
Well, there are
as
other
well.
groups, but they do say that they're abnormally large. The
Mm.
family that is closest to them are the Denali's that live in Alaska.
Yeah.
But they don't need to move around because they live in the mountains of Alaska, remote. They're not near a town or anything, so they can just kind of stay where they are.
Yeah, don't really interact with anyone so that they don't really get suspicious of how they never age.
Which
or
is like a good way to do
anything.
it, you know?
It really is.
Yeah. So these 3 nomads show up. We got Victoria, we got James, and we have Laurent.
Laurent seems chill. We can talk
He
about
seems
movie.
fine.
Do we want to talk about movie Laurent now or later?
I liked movie Laurent.
Movie Laurent rocks, but I only want to talk about it because Meyer, she has made it clear that she did not really love that they cast a black man to play Laurent.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Because in her lore of vampirism, the vampire venom eliminates melanin. So basically, in her universe of things, vampires cannot be black.
Okay, I can see why that would be problematic.
It is a little bit problematic, but I am glad that the filmmakers kind of didn't bother with that. Because it would be really weird, and it's also just a bold choice on her part, as much as obviously, like, black people without melanin exist. Like,
Yeah.
it is a thing, but it is also quite curious for you to be like, vampires must be white.
Yeah. He does look ashy in the movie.
Sure.
Like, you can tell he's pale.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, is that, like, black people get pale.
It happens.
People of color can be pale.
Absolutely.
So it is just a very curious and bold choice to me, but I am glad that it has not gotten so much attention.
Yeah, I've never
Because
heard this before.
It's undue attention. Yeah, there's no need to focus on it, but I just feel like it's worth mentioning that it was a weird thing that she tried to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting. So he seems to be the tenuous leader of this group, or he at least talks more.
He does.
We got Victoria, who is clearly with James, like they're mates.
Yeah.
James, God, man, the actor that played James,
Cam Diggin'
sticking out his chest. Like,
I literally,
oh God,
I only know his name because for some reason I got super obsessed
because he's a
with him.
meme.
Is he a meme?
Yeah, have you seen like the memes about him like tilting his head side to side and sticking out his chest? Like, oh my God, his poor back, his poor
Honestly.
neck during filming.
Yeah. But
So
they make him very animalistic, and when they're talking about how he is extra villainous, they talk about how he has an extra good sense of smell.
he's
So-
a tracker, yeah.
Yeah, he's a tracker. But the way that they recreate that is have him be very, like, not really talk.
He's a caricature almost.
When he talks, it's, like, snarly and growly, like, tilting his head from side to side like you do when you're, like, trying to hear something out.
You know what it reminds me of? Like one of those like trick mirrors with the, you know, like where the
Yeah.
surface is distorted, except that's what he actually looks like.
Yeah.
Anyway, I should be nicer to this actor.
He's like if Emmett wasn't cool.
Yeah, and skinny.
Yeah.
And pale. Well, Emmett's pale too.
Emmett is pale.
Emmett doesn't whip his shirt off. We're getting distracted. We have Victoria, who does not possess any real interest for us at this point.
Not yet. For this book, she is just kind of
There.
a woman.
She disappears.
She does.
We sort of forget about her by the end.
Yeah. It's kind of the worst, but then she gets to be a villain later, so
Yeah.
she's not entirely a, you know,
Yeah.
what is there's a name for the trope. Sexy lamp? Sexy lamp.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Fun fact.
Cool.
It's when
I'm
you just
learning
have
a
a
lot.
lady to be pretty.
Nice.
Mhm.
So they say to them, "We heard you playing baseball and we came to investigate. You guys live here?" And the Cullens are like, yeah, and since you brought it up, you're kind of creating an issue for us by leaving all these dead bodies around.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, oh, yeah, no problem, we're leaving anyway. And Cullens are like, fantastic!
Yeah.
And the Nomads are like, hey, can we play too? And they get egged on because the Nomads say, oh, like, we don't think you could stand up to us in baseball. And Jasper and Emmett are like,
Fucking men.
Yeah, and then they think the crisis has been averted, and they go to walk away, and a aptly timed breeze happens and pushes Bella's scent towards James, and he's like, oh, hell yeah, I'm hungry. And then Edward gets really defensive.
Mm-hmm.
The odds are not in the Nomads' favor. It's 3 on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, not good. Well, Bella.
No, 7 because there's 5 children and then Esme and Carlisle.
Oh, good point. Thank you.
Who are you not counting? Oh no.
I wasn't counting Bella. Sorry. I apologize.
I guess. Anyway.
Because, like, she wouldn't be able to do anything in a fight. Yeah, the odds are not in their favor. So Laurent's like, okay, let's go. And then Bella's like, okay, yeah, look, problem solved. And Edward's like, not quite.
Problem not solved.
Because James has been challenged, so he's got to see it through. He viewed Edward defending Bella as a challenge. Which apparently is solved by killing Edward? Question mark?
But is actually solved by killing Bella instead because that's where his priorities end
It's
up?
a prize thing when you think about it.
I guess, like, I have read enough werewolf fiction that people try to use the, like, alpha beta shit on, which is fake werewolf, like, fake wolf shit, but, like, it can be a real werewolf thing. Werewolves are made up. That, like, I
Yes,
get...
thank you.
I get it.
Or are they?
Oh no, scandal! I really do understand when people try to pull, like, this is a challenge to your dominance and all that fucking shit that people like to say is problematic, and it is, because when you're trying to adapt it into these are human people, it becomes very problematic. That I understand where this whole thought of, like, oh, this is a challenge to his dominance comes from, but it's really fucking useless here. It is not a challenge to his dominance, it is a game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, they have to get Bella out of Forks, apparently.
They think this will fix the problem.
Yeah, the next part is not explained that well. You don't really understand. Like, I'm sure there's some logic behind it, but it doesn't get explained.
And it's probably partially because it's from Bella's perspective. So with them kind of all just
making decisions for
her, she barely understands what's going on, so she can't really explain it well to us what's going on.
Yes, that's fair.
But anyway.
So the most heartbreaking scene of the whole book happens because she gets in a fight with Charlie, and Charlie thinks that she is leaving because she doesn't like him. It's horrible.
It's so horrible.
Grace's head is in her hands right now.
Like, she does
it's heart-wrenching.
It is. She does so on purpose so that he won't, like, come after her and everything when she leaves with Alice and Jasper to try and
he doesn't know that she's leaving with Alice and Jasper.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is part of it.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't know what she's doing, except that she says she's going back to live with her mom because she hates it here and she doesn't like him and all this stuff. And she even, like, remembers what her mom said when she left him.
This was a low blow.
And says it back to him.
Word for word.
Word for word. Like, she is so intentionally trying to make it so that he will understand that she needs to leave. But she does it by lying, and it's just heartbreak.
Yeah, it's not good.
No.
So she escapes. For some reason, she goes with Alice and Jasper, and the plan here is that Rosalie and Emmett take pieces of Bella's clothing that have her scent on it, and they try to establish 3 different scent paths, I guess, with her scent, so that the tracker will become confused and they can get Bella away while Carlisle and Edward find the tracker and kill him. This doesn't work. The tracker realizes what is happening. Alice sees this because she is watching the tracker's decisions.
Yes.
James. We should just say James. Sorry, the tracker is James. So Alice, by this point they've arrived in Phoenix, which, side note, I'm confused. Phoenix is hella sunny.
It is. But it just so happens that they get there during a rainstorm. LOL.
Yeah, funny how that works.
Crazy.
Alice has a vision of Bella on the floor of a room bleeding, and this room has mirrors for walls. Mm-hmm. So it's a ballet studio. And Alice is like, well, this is fine. We'll just keep Bella with us, no problem. And then she won't ever go to this room, and she won't be on the floor bleeding. And then they say, okay, Edward's plane is landing. We gotta go to the airport, pick him up. Yeah. So then James calls Bella, and she hears her mother yelling for her. And James says, I've got your mom. If you want to see her live, you have to surrender yourself. And Bella's like, okay. And then when they go to the airport to pick Edward and Carlisle up, Bella says to Alice and Jasper, I am hungry because I'm a human, and I need to go to the bathroom. And Jasper says, okay, I will go with you. Mm-hmm. And Bella's logic here is that there's so many people here and scents and feelings for him to pick up on that he won't notice when her aura, I guess, disappears. So this airport is so big that the bathroom has 2 exits and entrances. So she says, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom. He says, okay, I will wait here for you. So she goes in one end to the bathroom, goes out the other, catches a cab, and she's gone. Mm-hmm. James has told her to meet him at the ballet studio. And then we're back to the iconic, I never given much thought to how I would die. She arrives at the ballet studio to discover that this entire time her mom has been in Florida, and it's just James. James just wants her. He has no interest in Bella, and the way that he got her mom's voice is by playing a home movie over the phone.
Which, like...
Devious.
Smart. Yes. Very smart. Yeah. But also, did he, like, is her childhood home still...
He broke into it, yeah.
Okay, so it does still exist in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a little bit more sense. Because initially it feels like such a cinematic moment, like book and movie, that you would think, like, oh, drama, that you kind of get distracted and you're like, wait.
Yeah.
Like, where did you get this from, sir? Do they just have home movies from assorted members of this dance troupe still in the closet in this dance studio? Because Dance studios are not that...
No,
they're
but that's
not
where he
that
gets
level of storage.
her mom's cell phone, because he calls her from her mom's cell phone.
Mm. Oh.
Yeah, he steals it from the house.
Nabbed.
Yeah. So, because James is a sadistic bastard, he is going to film Bella dying, because he then wants to push Edward into attacking him so that he can also kill Edward. He wants he wants Edward to try and avenge Bella's death. So he starts attacking her, and he's basically going to make it as slow as possible. Like, throws her against the mirrors, cuts her up real good.
Breaks her leg.
Yeah. Edward shows up just in time to see James bite Bella.
Yes.
This is important because you become a vampire when you are bitten by one. Yes?
Yes. It takes they can't take all of your blood. They have to leave some of it, which is why there aren't a lot of vampires that are turned.
Yeah.
Because it is so hard for them to
not
stop.
Yeah.
So you have to be bitten, still have some blood left / be alive, wait 3 days, and then you're probably a vampire.
Yeah, it's a process to transform. So he drinks some of her blood, but Edward pushes him off of her. So we've satisfied that requirement.
Yes.
And at this point, Bella has decided that she wants to be with him forever, and Alice has seen Bella as a vampire in the future at some point.
Yes.
So Edward and James fight, and it's becoming clear that Edward is losing, but then the rest of his family shows up, and they take James, take his head off, and burn the pieces, because they say that's how you really kill a vampire.
It seems to be the only surefire way that you can kill one.
Yes, because they heal super fast.
Yes.
And then, so Carlisle looks at Bella and says to Edward, either you have to suck the venom out of her, which means drinking some of her blood, which is what he's been avoiding this whole time, or you have to let the change happen. And we know it's going to, and Alice is like, let's just let it happen. We know it's going to happen. It may as well happen now. And Edward says, no, I want her to have a life. So he sucks the venom out and possesses the strength to stop. He does stop.
He does.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, he only knows when to stop because he, lifts his head off her wrist and goes, her blood tastes clean, or something along that line, which is just like a weird phrase and really brought me like flashbacks of purity culture stuff. You know what I mean? That I was like, oh, this got weirder than it already was.
Yeah, well, he has said kind of that different individuals and animals have tastes.
Yes.
Kind of according to who they are as a person.
Yeah.
Because I think he says James's blood tasted dirty because he's evil.
Yes.
And Bella's blood is clean because she's a good person.
Which is, again, super sketchy.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I know she probably didn't mean it as like a purity culture type thing,
but
that's how it comes off.
Yeah.
So, Bella has blacked out by this point. She wakes up in a hospital, and this story that the Collins have given Charlie is that Edward tracked down Bella to try and convince her to come back to Forks, and on her way down to the hotel lobby to meet him, she falls through a window in the stairwell.
And downstairs, yeah.
Yeah, and like down a bunch of flights of stairs, which everyone has accepted because Bella is hella clumsy. Renee says, oh, that's fine, she can come live with me in Florida, and Bella says, no, I want to stay in Forks because I love Charlie, but it's actually because she wants to stay with Edward.
Yeah.
And she flips when Edward suggests that they are not good for each other, which is damn near the most accurate self-reflection he's done this whole time.
I don't know about that. Like, definitely they are too intense with each other and they need to slow it down, but not in a way that is ever really treated as we exist together in a bad way. Like, it is not like the toxic relationships that I am more familiar with, like Tessa and Hardin, where they clearly bring out the worst parts of each other.
Yeah, with this is more, she's really dependent on him and
Yes.
doesn't have a life out, which is also harmful, but harmful in a different
Exactly.
way. Like, you know, I have to say, I don't think Bella is a bad person.
No.
She's not. She just doesn't really have any substance outside of her relationship with Edward. It becomes the only thing that's important to her.
Yes, which is not ideal. But I really don't... I feel like it is less that we're bad for each other and more that we need to give this more time.
Yeah, it's more the unhealthy dependence, I would say.
Dependence, obsession, so surefire when they've known each other for like 2 months.
It's been 2 months at this point.
Like, it's not long enough to have any sort of life outside of each other.
Not only that...
Especially for Bella. Like, Edward's been kicking for 90 years after he became a vampire. He has had time to live and make choices where Bella has not.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, though, not only is it not long enough for them to be convinced that they are the only person for each other, but Bella is also decided at this point that she wants to become a vampire because Edward does not age.
Mm-hmm.
So she does not want to be like an 85-year-old woman next to a 17-year-old dude, which I do sort of get.
Me too.
Edward doesn't ever acknowledge that that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
She's like, that would be weird. He's like, no, it's not. It's pretty weird.
It's pretty weird. As much as it is, like, nice, like, what we do in the shadows, they had a love interest that was, like, in her 90s, and he is, like, 200 something, and they even make the joke of, like, I know people make jokes about how I am doing jailbait or something, but it is untrue, we love each other very much. Like, they pull that shit, and it is nice to have that also be a relationship dynamic that is possible with vampires, but because in her, like, in the Twilight lore of vampires, they kind of stay at the level of maturity that they were turned at, it is suddenly very weird for her to be that much older than him physically.
Yeah, they're both
Yeah.
17 at this point.
Yeah.
And he basically puts her off by saying, I'll think about it, but if you really want to do this, I want you to have as many human experiences as you can before it happens.
Yes.
This is how she ends up going to prom with him after she gets out of the hospital. So they go. Jacob Black shows up when Edward goes to buy the tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Baby Jacob Black says, my dad wants to tell you that we will be watching you. So it's like, Jacob doesn't know at this point that the legends are true, but his dad sure does.
Yeah. His dad is the chief. He knows what's up.
He knows, yeah. And Billy says, can you break up with your boyfriend? Bella's like, no, I love him. And Billy's like, okay, but we'll be watching.
Yeah.
In a non-weird way. Except it's weird.
It is a little bit weird, but it is, like, I think because Edward kind of slows on his intensity about trying to control himself and stuff, like, in this prom scene, he literally kisses her neck and is able to, like, not do anything past that to, like, tease her.
Yeah.
Like, I do think it is worth having other people watch over them and make sure that he doesn't lose it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, that's where the book ends, basically, at prom.
Yeah.
And a whole subculture was born.
So much. And I do also want to mention before we wrap up summary-wise that it is one thing, I think part of why this is such a weird relationship dynamic and why it is so emphasized that, you know, her becoming a vampire and also her having this relationship with Edward, like, must go hand in hand. It's very fairy tale and very marriage is one person forever, where I feel like when you're a vampire, you're allowed to have more than one partner in your lifetime. Like, I know part of it is, do vampires have mates in this universe? Is that...
Yes, because they say that Alice and Jasper are mates, and Rosalie and Emmett are mates,
Yeah.
Carlisle and Esme, and then James and Victoria. And then we meet more vampires later on, but...
And they also have mates.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they do like to have a, you know, biological, we are, you know, together for life thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like going in with that mindset is really what fucks up this, we have to get married, and also that is what's required to turn you into a vampire, when they really don't need to be hand in hand.
No,
like,
but
that would just be a vampire and exist.
It's explained as like Edward being from the time that he's from, like the 1900s. Like,
yeah,
that's kind of what you did.
Which is also why he won't like kiss her a lot and
he's very
do
reserved.
sex things with her.
He's very reserved.
Yeah, which is fine. He's allowed he's allowed to place those boundaries.
Sure, yeah.
Whether it is because of how he was raised or because he is worried about controlling himself. Like, that is a valid way to go about things. It is just frustrating to me that Bella didn't feel like she could turn to Rosalie and be like, hey, what if you turn me into a vampire? And then have that same argument with Rosalie because Rosalie is jealous of her humanity.
Yes.
Which is another thing. I think that's an eclipse that they explained.
Yeah, we will probably do other episodes on the other books, but if we were to talk about all 4 books, we'd be here for a very long time.
Oh, it'd be too long.
Yeah.
It's far too long.
Mm-hmm. We do have lives, contrary to what some people may think.
Contrary to what I feel.
You have a life.
Every day I have to do things that are outside of my control.
Yes, that's me. Such is life.
Such is life.
I have an unpopular opinion.
Hit me.
So after,
Mm-hmm.
the story's shitty and the writing's shitty. It's like a double whammy.
Yes.
This is like, not the best story. I maintain that this is neither the worst nor the best thing I've ever read.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think it deserves a lot of the flack it gets. Like, there are definitely some reasonable critiques. Like, I understand where a lot of people are coming from, but some people saying that it was the worst thing that's ever been produced, I don't view it that way.
No.
As far as things that teenagers could be reading, if it was between this and after, I would say this.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is, I don't think... Yeah, it's not the worst thing you could be reading as a teenager, I don't think.
It's very milk white bread. Like...
It's very tame. It's not actually... There isn't a lot of mature content.
No. And it is worth noting that it does have these weird elements of purity culture, of you must be married to do anything. Like, stuff like that is a little bit shady. But
they kiss once.
They kiss once, and it
maybe
is
twice.
A big deal TM. Even that they hold hands and he throws a fit. Like, in the line, I may not be human, but I am a man. Like, stuff like that is a little bit sketchy to me.
Mm-hmm.
To think it is so inherent to a man that they must want sex and must desire it, it's like a little bit like, maybe you shouldn't. But it is also nice that Bella has so much sexual desire because that is unusual, honestly.
It's realistic.
Exactly. Like, it feels so unusual for the sort of character that she embodies because all of these, like, you know, I am virginal, I am perfection, I am good girl, I am clumsy and awkward and everyone loves me, but I really don't get it. Like, it is unusual for those women to also have sexual interest. Usually it's like, oh, I want this boy's attention.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not usually like, I would like to take them to bed if they want to do that, please.
So,
You know?
what are you saying is the minimum age for this?
I want to go like 14.
Yeah, I would
14
say, yeah,
to
14.
18 feels like prime range.
Well, I mean, you can read whatever you want when you get older,
absolutely.
but like minimum age I think is 14.
Yeah.
I think I was 14 when I read this.
PG-13 feels...
Well, what was the movie rated? I think it was PG-13 because there's a fair amount of violence actually, like blood and stuff.
The ending does really get violent.
Which I think is PG-13. Yeah.
Yeah.
That works.
Totally fair.
I think that's fair.
Exactly.
Again, neither the worst nor the best thing a teenager could read.
Exactly.
I don't think this is going to give anyone any particularly egregious ideas.
No. And I do feel like a lot of the initial hate came from
the fact that it was popular.
It being popular, especially popular with women and young girls. Again, misogyny. The idea that vampires could be love interests in mainstream media was kind of unusual at the time because it was so like Dracula, Nosferatu, like they had been relegated to the horror genre for most of that.
And nerd culture. I feel like a lot of people took it as this is something that nerds read, which has a negative connotation for a lot of people. Not that it should, but you know what I'm
exactly. And that for so long, monster features and monster games, monster movies, monster stories. So often the monster is the villain. To have stories where you love the monster is like not a new phenomenon by any means because the gothic like literature romance era was prime for that. But it is definitely being mainstream a bit more odd to literally fall in love with the monster.
Yeah. So based on that,
Mm-hmm.
is Edward a hero or an anti-hero?
He is neither.
Yeah,
because this is a romance novel, so he is technically the hero by romance novel terms.
Yeah, he just doesn't think he is.
He just doesn't think he is because he's full of self-hatred. He is depressed.
Yeah, it's a lot. Again, we're not mental health professionals.
No.
But you cannot read this in Midnight Sun way more and not understand that this man needs help.
He really does. And I get that he's been kicking for 100-something years. But when you are stuck in that mindset of a teenager for 90 of those years,
that's a lot, man.
Rough. That's too long.
Yeah, he's like, God damn, like, Carlisle gets to be an adult.
Yes,
that's so bad.
Carlisle gets to be an adult, Esme's an adult. Is Rosalie? She was like 23, 22 when she got turned.
Yeah, and at this point, she's masquerading as a 18-year-old, which is like a senior in high school, so...
It's doable.
Yeah, that's fine.
I feel like actors do that too often for it to not be doable.
Yeah. So... Yeah, I don't actually think a lot of the flack for this was deserved, is what I'm trying to say. The movies. The movies could have been done better.
Sure.
We gotta talk about the constant blue lighting in the first one.
That is oddly aggressively intentional because it is like a teal green lighting because that is unnatural lighting. Like that does not occur in nature, this like weird color. So it is supposed to, it's kind of like a Dutch angle. It's supposed to make sure that the audience feels uncomfortable and realizes how unnatural the scenario is until Bella is more comfortable in Forks, and then it's not so weird and blue. But it is very distracting, the level that it's at.
Yeah, and the colors don't happen that way in the other movies. No, they don't.
No. Because it is also a different director for the later movies. The first one is the only one directed by a lady.
Catherine Hardwicke. Catherine Hardwicke.
I love that for us.
I believe she also contributed to the script.
I would think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
As did Stephenie Meyer, so... You know what? Go Stephenie Meyer for retaining creative control.
She also gets a cameo.
She does, and
she
produces. She produces as well. So I like that she stayed involved and kind of saw it through to the end. So we know how it worked out when Stephen King didn't do that.
Although I will also mention that, because we're talking about Twilight, I feel like I can say and mention 50 Shades.
Yes.
Because
on the topic of subcultures.
Yeah. E.L. James, like when we compare the movies and influence of the author in the movies, E.L. James took over way more control for the two later movies, and they got distinctly worse in that. The first one is tolerable, and then it just turns to garbage because she takes over more control, and the stranglehold she has on that script is, you know, the books themselves are garbage. So when you have to move that into a visual medium, it perpetuates the garbage.
Where did she post E.L. James post the draft for this? Was it on fanfiction or was it on Wattpad?
It was on fanfic.net, and that is only retained by me because fanfic.net has a strict no smut policy. Well,
how'd that work out?
As strict as it can be. So when she wrote 50 Shades and she had the explicit chapters, she would write non-explicit versions on fanfic.net and then write explicit versions on her website. Which is why
commitment.
It is, which is why a lot of the times the sex scenes feel so separate from the story because you could read them without it. Which is not, I don't know if we have time to get into the use of sex in anything and everything, but it is not, when it is entirely separate and unrelated and removes itself from the pacing, it just is not good for a story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Side note, E.L. James wrote a lot of that because she's British, so she would take the tube to work. She said that she wrote a lot of it on her BlackBerry, which, like, you know, props to you, but also explains a lot.
It explains so much.
Also, BlackBerries, relic of the past, eh?
Honest. But yeah, Twilight, like, everyone knows that 50 Shades was based on a Twilight fanfiction and was basically adapted from the fanfiction to IP by rubbing off the serial numbers, I think is the phrase a lot of people use, where she really just changed the names and the occasional points of punctuation. Mm-hmm. But it definitely should have been edited more Except, again, E.L. James had such a stranglehold on the story that she would not let it happen.
Yeah.
So it is very rough, to say the least.
Yeah.
But it's notable to acknowledge how many stories that are out now or being adapted now were Twilight fanfiction. Like, it's kind of insane. Like, there's another trilogy. Gabriel's Inferno is the first book.
Oh, yeah, I read the first one because it was free on Kindle Unlimited.
Shut up, that's so funny.
That was even worse for the angst.
Mm-hmm. And it is
Gabriel's Inferno.
And it is based on a Twilight fanfiction. Like, it is a new genre it is a new romance genre of things based on Twilight fanfiction.
That person, Sylvain Reynard is a pen name. We don't actually know who wrote it.
No.
If they're a woman or a man or anyone. We don't know anything about them.
I love that.
Which I kind of like that. That's kind of fun that, because that series did really well. I assume they have a day job and they're just walking around and no one knows that they wrote something that did really well.
Mm-hmm.
So that series apparently has been optioned by one of the streaming services. I can't remember.
Passion Flix. Passion Flix has adapted the first book into 3 movies, which is a bad choice.
What's
honestly.
Passion Flix? What is that?
Passion Flix is a channel on Amazon Prime.
Oh.
That is specifically for adapting romance novels into movies, and I only know about it because I love Kenny JD, and she does a lot of videos on Passion Flix movies.
Oh, I'm gonna check that. I'm curious.
I'm
learning so much.
It's like, I think it's like $1.99 or $2.99 or something, like a month. Like, it's one of those, but they do have a 7-day free trial, or maybe a month free trial. So I would recommend tentatively trying it out if you like making fun of romance movies. Because that's all that their collection is.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole other episode on what E.L. James spawned, because that's a whole other conversation.
It really is, and I have so many feelings about it, and I have tried to communicate these feelings to other people so often, but most of the time they have not watched the movies or read the books, so I'm sitting there saying these things, and they're saying stuff that other people have said to them, and I'm like, no, you're not hearing me.
Yeah, like the billionaire romance trope really jumped up after E.L. James.
Oh, absolutely.
Which that's a whole other episode, because then you have stuff like 50 Shades, Gabriel's Inferno, a little bit.
Again, it is also based on Twilight, so they are very similar.
365 Days is apparently inspired by oh my god, 50 Shades.
Yes.
Sorry, brain. We've had a lot of things to do this week, guys. Our brains are not in the building. No. But check out our lib guides. That was one of our assignments.
Yeah.
So, what else do we have? Oh, the most important question. Are you Team Edward or Team Jacob?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have a long thing about this because
I'll just say I'm Team Bella should get a hobby. Continue.
That's so bad. So my sister was the one that read these books because
you mentioned.
When they came out, like, she was the right age for it and I was too little.
Mm-hmm.
But she got me to watch the movies, and she was Team Jacob, so she insisted that I be Team Edward.
Okay.
And I was like,
the yin to her yang.
Okay. Yeah, basically. But I was not.
Okay.
I did not understand. I was not at a good age to understand the chemistry between any of them, but I did have a Twilight poster in my room, and do you remember Scholastic Book Fair?
Oh, I used to love those.
They're the best. So I ended up buying myself a Jacob, bookmark. So I think I might have been Team Jacob as a child.
Yeah.
As much as I could be.
We will be doing an episode on the rest of the books, probably.
I mean, we can.
Yeah, largely when we have nothing else to do, because we don't want to hit you with too much stuff we didn't like.
Yeah.
Because like we said, we did get into a book. We have some books that we did like.
Yes.
Yes.
And I would argue that Twilight is more so bad it's good territory than After ever was.
Yeah, I mean, I get really passionate about After, in case you couldn't tell, because I view it as actually harmful.
Yes.
I would be comfortable letting my 14-year-old child read Twilight.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I do feel like if I bought them the books, I would also donate to the to the res. So.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Maybe.
So, I believe that they did amend this somewhat in the later movies.
Okay.
But in the first movie, we see Jacob and his friends. Taylor Lautner is not Indigenous.
No. He is spicy white. So he doesn't look white, but he is.
Yeah. None of the actors that portray his friends are Indigenous. That said, I do believe the actor that portrays Billy is partly Indigenous.
Yeah.
So he's the only one. The Culettes are real.
Yeah.
And a lot of people took issue with the fact that Stephenie Meyer borrowed from their culture and then it wasn't adequately represented in the films. That's okay. The one thing I will say about this is that I put equal blame on the filmmakers for this.
Definitely, but she did not give them good building blocks because she already perverted their mythology.
Yeah, so it's like a vicious cycle, basically, is what I'm trying to say. It's neither entirely her fault nor entirely the filmmaker's fault. I think it's pretty equal.
Yeah, I would agree with that hesitantly. Just that, like, the entirety of this franchise does not treat the Indigenous groups represented appropriately, like, at all.
Yeah.
Like, obviously it's in later books when we get more and meet more of the Indigenous cast. And I do believe that the movies include more Indigenous actors.
They do, yes. As they become more than just background characters.
Exactly.
The second book heavily focuses on them and they're major players thereafter.
Yes. But it does still play into, like, the kind savage trope and tying, like, it is one thing for Edward to have this, like, carnal drive to eat / drink Bella's blood, and a whole other thing to have this cast of Indigenous characters who literally turn into animals. Like, it is, and it is, obviously there are stories and parts of Indigenous folklore where turning into animals is very important, and shape-shifting and spirit animals are all very key to a lot of Indigenous cultures.
It's very spiritual, yes.
Exactly. So there are ways to portray it appropriately, and the werewolves in Twilight just ate it cheap.
Yeah, and they also equate it with becoming a wolf with puberty.
Yes.
Which
gross.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We should talk about that when we do New Moon, but I haven't really settled on an opinion about that.
Yeah.
I sort of go back and forth on not whether or not it's positive, but if it makes an impact versus is this harmful. So I need to think about that in a bit more detail and do some research before I come out with an opinion on that.
Absolutely. And there is room to say that, like, physical maturity comes with spiritual and emotional and all those other maturities to, like, kind of marry the concepts, but it is definitely still sketchy and requires a lot more thought than I have even put into it.
Yeah, I hadn't, and I think this wasn't really being discussed at the time that the books came out, so I don't think I thought about it at all when I was reading them for the first time as a 14-year-old.
Which I kind of feel like is valid when these aren't issues that you're used to handling or dealing with or experiencing. It can be hard to remember that these are issues that other people deal with.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
100%.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That is Twilight. That was actually a lot less angsty filled than I thought it would be.
And I'm so glad.
Yeah, we were less mad this time. Why don't we end off talking about what we're reading right now, each of us? I gave her A Court of Thorns and Roses by our queen, Sarah J. Maas.
So I am working through that, but I did also just make a Storygraph account, and it made me fully register how many books I'm in the middle of. I also literally just picked up and started reading the first chapter of Diary of an Oxygen Thief.
Which interesting. I haven't heard of that.
It's so... Like, I've discovered recently that I keep reading really weirdly narrated books. So this one is very straightforward in a way that I wasn't anticipating, and that I know a lot of people would find very tiring, but I honestly have found very compelling because it is so straightforward and very, like, I did this. How do you feel about that? Like, it is very weird that way, but also very compelling. I wanted to keep reading it, but I was in the middle of making craft dinner, So I had to
I don't
go
know how you
tend to my
eat that
noodles.
stuff. I don't know how you eat that stuff. Are you liking ACOTAR so far?
I mean,
Slow burn.
Very slow burn, and I'm not a big fan of slow burn. I need something, and I feel like I'm trying to make Tamlin my something to keep going, because I know he gets bad, and I want to see how he gets bad, / worse. He's not great right now.
I will say, without spoiling it for you, that Sarah J. Maas does take quite a few tropes and turn them on their head.
Noted.
So I am reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This came out a couple years ago. I know everyone talks about Daisy Jones and the Six. I am not a fan of books that are entirely in letters or emails. I prefer prose. So I picked up this one. It came recommended. I am just under halfway through it. Like I said, we had a lot of things due the last couple weeks, so I'm just kind of getting back into it. But I'm really enjoying it thus far. It's a nice light read. And then I'm going to be getting into, I haven't really decided yet if I'm going to get into The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller or Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. It's going to depend if I'm feeling more adulty or young adulty. I've also picked up V.E. Schwab's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which everyone talks about a lot, so I'm excited for that, and I think you had expressed some interest in that as well.
I mean, a little bit. I have liked her other books. I want to start Vengeful soon, because I liked Vicious.
Let me know how it is. I've heard things.
I loved Vicious, so if you want to read that, I would really recommend it. But I have only, I am so deeply aware that she is a straight woman, and she is allowed to be a straight woman, but I also just can't sit through books that are only about a romance or anything like that.
There's gotta be something else going on.
There needs to be something else going on, and also, if it is just a straight romance, there is something a little less interesting to me.
Yeah.
I can't, fully express it, really, what it is that I find so interesting about straight romances, but I feel
It's
like part of
overdone.
it, it's overdone, and also there's such an inevitability to it that frustrates me. One of her books that I loved, This Savage Song and Our Dark Duet.
Oh, I wanted to read This Savage Song.
I love it. I've read it several times. I love it so much. But the two main characters have so little romantic chemistry, but she still treats them like an inevitability, and I'm like, I don't see it. And I can never tell if it's me or if it really isn't there. So I do tend to need something else to keep me going. And I feel like if The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is just, I have found a man who remembers me, so I'm not so sad all the time. Let's fuck. That's just not compelling to me.
I did not read any spoilers for it, but someone did tell me that it sort of bounces back and forth between the past and the present day, so I think that it will be a bit more than that. Someone told me that it plays on the story of Dr. Faustus, so being that I read that in my honor supervisor was a medievalist at Acadia University, so we studied that one pretty extensively, and I actually really enjoyed it. So if there's elements of that, I think I will be a happy camper.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you're looking to pick up?
Oh my gosh. What was the other one? I also started reading The Witch King, which has been fun, because our main character is a very fiery sort of guy. Both metaphorically and literally.
Yeah.
But I haven't gotten too deep into that one. And then the other one I'm in the middle of is Heart Song, which I put it down to read A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I keep trying not to regret it.
It will get better. Stick with it.
I trust with so
me.
little.
Even if you don't trust Sarah J. Maas, trust me.
I will try.
What's the last thing you finished?
The last thing I finished, I finished something. Oh, on Enchantment of Ravens.
How was
That's
that?
the last thing I finished. It was so...
Was that Maggie Stiefvater?
No.
Oh, sorry.
No.
That's something else to do with ravens.
She did the Raven Cycle, and the last book of that is The Raven King, another series that I fucking love. Would recommend, as much as also I do not reread the first book when I reread them.
That's fair.
I just skip it because all of the boys are at their worst in that book because she hasn't fleshed them out or had them grow at all at that point.
Yeah.
So once you have all the groundwork, you do not need to reread it. Like, once you know these characters, you don't need to reread it.
Yeah.
You don't need to remember that Adam did a homophobia. You don't need to remember that all of them are a little bit racist. You just don't. So I don't.
So what'd you finish, sorry?
An Enchantment of Ravens.
Yeah.
By, I think it's like Margaret Robinson, maybe is her name. It was really nice. It was very, like, chill, but also just exciting enough. It was another case of these two are in love just to be in love, but with like a little bit more groundwork to it, so I wasn't totally gone, but I do keep comparing it to A Court of Thorns and Roses, because it's also, you know, you meet the, you know, random noble of a fairy court and go on hijinks because bad things happened. Margaret Rogerson is the author of that one.
Yeah. So prior to Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I finished State of Terror by Louise Penny and Hillary Clinton, which I'm hoping, I know that's not your thing, I might do a solo episode on that over Christmas if I can, with someone else, if I can find someone else who read it.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoyed it. I was not sure I was going to, but I really enjoyed it. And then prior to that, I DNF'd They Wish They Were Us by Jessica Goodman because I did not like.
Oh no.
Did you read that? Do you know what I'm talking
No, I just can't fathom a book you would DNF, honestly.
You can't think of a book I would DNF?
Not in a bad way. That just feels so like there's been that recent trend of YA fiction where it's like Breakfast Club but with murder. And that feels like a Breakfast Club with murder.
Yeah, except it's rich Breakfast Club with murder, and they all think they're better than everyone else. And it was also, I won't spoil it if you're reading it, but it was also blatantly obvious who did it.
Oh.
Like from, I'm not even kidding, chapter 3.
Ooh.
So it was just really hard to slog through. The protagonist is a horrible person, and also how do you not realize that this person did it? So I skipped to the end. I mean, I did, I guess, technically finish it because I read the ending because I was like, I need to make sure that I'm correct, and I was, and then I was like, all right, enough of that.
Oh.
So that hasn't happened in a long time, though. I have not DNF'd a book in a while because normally I'm sort of like, if I spent money on a book, I'm pretty committed to finishing it. This was one of those. The paperback version had just come out, so the hardcover was on sale. So I was like, I spent less money on it, I can DNF it. And if it's a library book, I will DNF if I really don't like it because I didn't spend money on it. So yeah, that's my reading list the last couple weeks / months.
Yeah.
I will probably be using a lot of my Christmas money on groceries and books. So
Yeah, I
stay tuned for big things.
so many groceries.
Yeah, all of the groceries.
It is so hard to buy food.
Yeah.
I feel like people don't talk about that enough.
Tax here is killing us, man. 15% provincial tax? Not good.
Oh,
I
I
come from the province that has no provincial tax. So
None?
yeah, none.
I can't fathom.
Because oil sands. We don't need it, we're too rich.
That's why we need to tax you.
Yeah. Someone described Alberta one time as the Canadian Saudis. And
Also the Canadian Texas.
Yeah, Canadian Texas Saudis. There we go. That's good.
Gross.
There's definitely, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that, but I saw it in a meme, okay? It wasn't me that said it.
Yeah, I do feel like saying that is intended as kind of derogatory to Alberta, like, also feels derogatory to Saudi Arabia and Texas at the same time.
It
So,
does.
like,
God damn, we started talking about Twilight and this is where we're at. This is where our brains are, guys.
yeah.
Yeah. She is fried. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this.
Train wreck?
Yeah. It's always going to be a train wreck in a different way. Yeah, so next week we have not really decided what we're going to do. We know it's going to be a broader topic, and we're going to have our good friend Michelle, fingers crossed. Michelle, if you're listening, I've now announced it, so you have to come on.
Which is not how that works, actually.
But it is, though. It is, though. After I hit finalize project on GarageBand, that's it.
That's it. Done deal.
That's it.
No such thing as taking back your consent or boundaries. Never.
Nope.
Nope.
Absolutely not, because we don't want to kill our listeners
No.
with just the sound of just us.
Hardly.
No.
No.
So, we hope you guys are having a good November. In America land, it is Thanksgiving. If you are in America land, happy Thanksgiving. We hope you get to spend some of it with your families. And we hope you read some good books.
Yeah.
Eat some good food. And I guess till next time. We have not come up with a suitable sign-off yet, so
I'm sure we'll figure something out.
yeah, we'll figure something out. If you have any suggestions, let us know.
Totally.
All right. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.